All right, guys, our next guest, of course, is a Stanley Cup winner from back in 2003. Not only that, scored the cup clinching goal, which I'll concede that's probably number one on his career highlight list. I think number two happened this week when he basically won the internet with his video describing what happened with Auston Matthews. I was ecstatic because I watched the video about 10 times, sent it to my buddies. We talked about it. And as we're talking about it, I get a text from our producer, Jeff, saying, "Hey, Mike Rupp's coming on the show this week." I'm like, fantastic, because I can't wait to talk to him about this and so much else. Mike, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, no, it was, I didn't think that, listen, I started messing around doing a couple of these things now and then. I got this, just fumbling around on my iPad. I found this app that is really good. It's got a nice little rewind and wheel on it where you can get some stuff. And it's generally used for trying to do little breakdowns when I'm not working. So I just find that's like when I find something I'm passionate about or something, and I'm on the couch watching games like we all do. I think it's cool for the fans to like get the instant, bang. Like even if I'm wrong or right, whatever the circumstance is, I think that those are things I know that I eat up in consuming other sports. So I want to try to provide that. And so this was just that. I went to bed. I sent that thing out like at 11 something at night. Went to bed and I woke up in the morning and my phone's just blowing up. Like, oh, okay. I guess this is what happens when you talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. So.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. Sorry, I checked like right before we started recording this pod, and there was 1.2 million views on that video alone, which I thought was just fantastic. I'll let Russo get his question in a second, but I do want to ask you, because I always tell young broadcasting students, they always ask for advice, and I say the one thing you got to remember is you're always going to lose out to a former coach or player because they have insight that we just don't know, and that's what I loved about the video. Like, I love the fact that you were talking to us about the guys in the room are no longer going to accept this. So just as a guy who's been there, a guy who won a cup, a guy who's played with some of the greatest players of all time, I mean, what really just struck you during that whole thing that made you say, you know what, I got to vent a little bit about what I'm seeing?
Well, let me vent with this first off, because I would say to be completely transparent of everything that I saw, I would say it was 65-35 as far as people agreeing with it. And then there's quite a few who didn't, you know what I mean? But the part that irked me afterwards, and I know this will get Mike going for sure. And I'm sure both of you guys as well. Stop putting words in my mouth. I did not say Auston Matthews should fight. I don't ever want to see him fight. Yeah. I don't ever want to see superstars fight. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I said. That became the thing where everybody's just like, well, do you think Auston should drop the gloves there? I don't think he should drop the gloves there. All I was saying in those moments, though, it's like, it went from that. And then the other part, too, that you mentioned, Rob, is like, I didn't say his teammates don't like him. They probably love him. I don't know that dynamic. All I'm saying is that will wear thin over time.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching it. And so the scrum happened. And I watched it through a couple times, and what tipped me to kind of dig into it more was Auston gives that smirk, and we've seen that smirk many times, and that's fine. I kind of like the smirk in general because it's going to aggravate and antagonize the other team, and that's that's kind of hockey sometimes, right? And I've certainly been someone who's done that in my career in a much lesser of a star scale, but you try to push the other team's buttons. So that's what got me going on it. But then I was like, I watched it back. I'm like, he kind of like kept this thing going and he didn't want anything to do with it. And I'm like, okay, so I'm like, all right, well, I've seen a million scrums. I've been involved with them. I've watched them. And this is the part too and this is, God bless Twitter. What does that guy know about scoring 60 goals and managing this and that? Well, let me tell you what I know. And this will let me vent. What I do know is that I was a role player, that I have tons of gratitude to everybody who's given me an opportunity to live out my dream and play in the league. I certainly was not as skilled as all these other guys, but you think for 1 second, all the great players that I played with, that I wasn't a sponge in talking to them, watching them, seeing how they manage situations. I mean, you can sit there and look at I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we're all can break it down as players at different times. But I mean, I've been so fortunate to watch probably 10 Hall of Famers that I played with in my career that I could see how they manage things. They showed me how to win. People are like, oh, what does this guy know about? Yes, that the cup that we won, I was in great hands. I didn't win the cup for the New Jersey Devils. I scored a timely goal. But I watch those guys, how they manage things. I know what it looks like for a championship team, what it needs to feel like in the room. I've seen Sidney Crosby navigate through these things that Auston Matthews navigating through. My thing is, you cannot act like this will take care of for you if you're the one initiating it. And my problem with that is, I love that he went after connecting in the corner. I like that. I actually think one of the best things I've seen from Auston Matthews was, and people probably disagree with this to some degree, taking Dahlin's bloody head off in the outdoor game. I thought that was one of the best things because Auston, my point is, when he reacts like this, the line is getting longer and longer and longer for people that want to challenge Auston Matthews. Because, and so he in this game, I guess my point is this Toronto Maple Leafs team, and it's certainly a team that the sky is falling all the time in Toronto. They're a talented team. They're a team that Auston scored 60 goals last year, and he was the MVP hands down. He's one of the top, you can argue, 3 players in the world right now. I love what he brings. This group needs to find another level, and we can't measure this group until the playoffs. And all I know is that if that was a litmus test of is anything different, I would say no, nothing's different. I think if you got an A on your sweater, you need to lead your group, inspire your group. And if you're going to start a little bit of some, a little ruckus, then you better be involved with them and not stand there and smile. And that image that I saw when I did that video, and I had that little scrubber on my iPad where it's showing a shitstorm move this way, and there's one person just standing in there staring down at nothing. That's alarming to me. Are you in this with them or are you not? I thought it was a great moment for Mark Giordano, Michael Bontin, Kelly Yarncroke, Rasmus Sandin, because we've been questioning that for a long time. That's been answered. Those guys, I love how they responded. Be in it with them, man. Be in it with them. And then a whole nother conversation to that, if Auston Matthews ever did drop the gloves, I've been in the locker room when Sid did it. I can't even tell you what it does to the locker room. I can't even tell. But if he doesn't want to do it, I don't want him doing it. I don't want him to get hurt. But inspire this team. You have to lead. That to me was not an example of leadership. And that's kind of why I went off.
Yeah, I found the whole video, fascinating, just from your perspective. And again, I covered you. I know how you think. It really was fascinating. I don't think it's something that the average fan or media member would even notice, that basically this guy started World War III on the ice, then was the only one to not take part and let his teammates do the dirty work. And, what if one of his teammates gets hurt in that situation that he caused and things like that? My biggest question, actually, because, again, knowing you, is, you mentioned this thing that you have on your iPad. How long did it take you to make this video, to narrate this video? Because I thought, the pausing, the highlighting on every single thing, his facial reactions, everything, I thought was genius. Again, whether you agree with you or not, it was just perfect commentary from somebody that, you would think would have years and years of broadcasting experience.
It actually didn't take long at all. The hardest thing actually is trying to consolidate it to around 2 minutes, because it'll cut it off. It cuts off when I get that and I turn it over to then Twitter. I got I think that one's maybe just over. It's a 2 minute, 5 seconds. There's something that I don't know what the rhyme or reason is, but when I've done it, doing other breakdowns, it won't put it on Twitter. So I think that's the hardest part. Is that was probably take 2, because I did take 1 and I was happy with it. But then I looked at the time. I'm like, oh, I'm over. Damn it. So I had to go do it again. But as far as it's cool. And that's what I love about it, is because when you have that little scrubber dial, you can just kind of go back and forth, kind of boomerang things, look at things. And it was funny, though, because the first time I did it, and I still do it now, and I think it's just from doing it on TV, Jamison Coyle, who I work with, always chirps me. He's like, hey, your little breakdowns that you're doing at 11:30 at night on your couch, who are you talking to when you say bring it back? Bring it back a little bit. I'm having my own calls to the edit room, but I'm the edit room. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just the way I do it. So I'm like, let's bring that back a little bit. But, it doesn't take long. It's fun. It's funny how many people reached out to me and were like, hey, how'd you do that? And I gave the app name, and it's whatever. I think this is stuff that is, again, whether it's me or anybody else, I love this stuff. I want it as soon as I have. I don't want it to be a produced thing that we think about overnight. Now we break down 100 ways. Let's get reactionary stuff. I might be right. I might be wrong. But these conversations, I want it straight from the source, like from what you're feeling in that moment.
Yeah.
Great stuff. I totally agree. To transition to around the league, we mentioned, obviously you won a Stanley Cup with the Devils, played the majority of your career there. I think they're one of the biggest stories around the league right now. My biggest question is, how legit do you think this team is? I mean, we've seen teams start out well and fizzle as the season goes on. I guess, how legit do you think they are? And what do you like most about what they're doing in New Jersey right now?
They're not a New Jersey Devils type team. I don't think we've thought that of them over the last number of years. I just think for so long since this team came into the league, it's been a boring team. I mean, listen, the Minnesota Wild were viewed that too. And it took a while for them to shed that, right? And it's just like you get labeled that. And this is the furthest thing from it. I would say, as much as we watch and tune in to see Connor McDavid play, it's must-watch TV for the casual fan, or somebody that's not even a fan of hockey. Just, I tune in when Edmonton's playing. You're going to see some stuff, and Leon and all that good stuff. Don't have the big, extravagant name with the New Jersey Devils at this point. But I would say that is really fun hockey to watch for a casual fan, or if some fans have an off night from their team playing, tune into a Devils game. Like they play at a unique clip, the way they zip the puck around. Sustainability, probably not to this level that they're at right now. But I think what we've seen, you can't ignore, and this should be a team that probably should be in the hunt there come playoff time, is being a bubble team. The goaltending will have to stay strong, because that's been something that's been good for them. And I don't know if we were able to, even like Seattle, New Jersey last year, how do you really assess the teams? Because the goaltending was so bad. So they're finally both teams getting goaltending. They look pretty good. So I will say this, though. My biggest concern long-term for this Devils team, and I like their future. I don't know what you guys think about this. I think the way these last two negotiations have gone with Jesper Bratt, and the way he's come out this year and played, he's going to have to get paid. He's an RFA again. I want to ask you guys this, because I love what you guys have been. Can you sign him long-term, big dollars, and have Hughes, Heischier, and Bratt eating up all that salary cap and all being under 6 foot? That to me, I don't know if that's the one thing that's got me on this team in the future. How are they going to handle Jesper Bratt? Are they going to give him what he deserves and what he will probably earn in the open market? If he does, like, what are you going to? This team needs size in their top 6 to get to that next level. I don't know. That's a small, talented group, but come playoff time, I don't know if I like their build.
Let me ask you about another team that you might not like their build, and that's the Minnesota Wild. I almost feel like you were just talking about them minus the winning right now. They are, they just, it's not even that just that they're, Mike, that let me start this. I was talking to a former NHL coach the other day that told me there's one team in the league that he doesn't even recognize from last season, and that's the Minnesota Wild. He felt that they were one of the best wall teams in the league last year, one of the best north-south teams in the league last year. And this year he's seeing a team that is not just undersized, but soft on the walls, lacking depth up and down their lineup. Obviously, they're very, very banged up, undersized on the back end. What is your make of this team? Because it does feel like this is a very, very different feel than last season, knowing even that they lost the Fialas and players like that.
Yeah. This is the part that I think some teams are going through. And I think Minnesota is one of them. I think back to when Torts was coaching. And Torts, I didn't have him that long. But, man, I wish I had him my whole career. The mental side of playing in the NHL is so big. And, I'll speak candidly the way Torch would speak to us to some degree, but he would say stuff to us. So like we made it, in 2012, we went to Eastern Conference Finals, lost to the Devils. And we were cruising through. We were up for the President's Trophy with Vancouver the entire season, and going in the playoffs, and we make it through each round. And then, we lose a couple games shy of the Stanley Cup Finals and come back the next season. The one message that he always says to us, and I think it's really, really important, is you haven't done a goddamn thing, is what he would say. You haven't won anything. You haven't accomplished shit. Don't let it get good to you. That's John Tortorella. We've probably all heard those things from him. And it's so true, because what made Minnesota so unique last year, they played with a chip on their shoulder. Like, they were a tough team to play against, and they were from the grief line through. It doesn't matter how big and how small, like, they competed hard, and they can play multiple ways. I just wonder, do they think they arrived? Do they think that they've accomplished something? New York Rangers look the same way. The Rangers played above expectations. They just lack that bite a little bit this year. And I don't mean bite like physicality and grit. Like, I just mean just going out and, I don't know, let's use even Vegas as an example. That was Vegas' MO when they came into the league. The last maybe 2 seasons, I feel like they lost that. They look like that angry team again, like that team with the chip on their shoulder. Yeah, they got something to prove. That's the thing. And Mike, you watch every second of them. You would know better than me. But from my, perspective, they just don't look like they have that same drive this year. Mm-hmm. And but then there's also some of the natural things that come into play. When you have career years from players, it's going to be tough. You need something else. You need somebody else to pick up the slack. So an example, Kevin Fiala, they had to do that. All right, that's gone. That's a hole in the lineup. Well, who's going to pick that up? Zook and Kirill were amazing. The chemistry that they came through with Hartman last year, and then all right, well, you can't expect that just to automatically be back again, right? Like, what else is going to happen here? And you had great Eriksson Ek, awesome seasons. Foligno, like there's some really good storylines, and right now they're all lacking, it seems like, right? Yeah. So it just don't have that edge. I'm not willing to throw in the towel on these guys. What's kind of funny, and I don't know what you think, Mike. I want to ask you this too. It's like, I actually feel like the guy who carried on last year into this year the most is probably Matt Boldy. Like, mm-hmm. he to me at least seems like he looks a little bit like what he was last year. I don't think there's many guys on that roster that do.
Yeah, no, you're exactly. I mean, and this was my concern coming into the year, is that so many guys had career years that you just feel like their regression is going to be natural. Yeah. I didn't think that 6 guys would regress. And they have a couple guys playing their worst hockey that I've ever seen them play. And a couple guys that were given unbelievable opportunities that have literally done nothing right now, like Tyson Jost and Sam Steele. So, I mean, it's just going to be interesting how Bill Guerin navigates this whole situation, Mike. So.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. And I was talking about this the other day too. And I know that I've talked to you about it before as well, but we all know that they need entry level guys thriving. That's they need this for the next 3 years or whatever, until these cap issues with those buyouts kind of resolve. This is a tough part, because Marco Rossi is the singular guy on that roster that has the skill that they need to step up. But it's not, you can't rush players. You can't manufacture players to adjust. Like, every player adjusts at their own speed. The problem is Minnesota doesn't have time for that. You know what I mean? Like, they need Marco Rossi to do it now. And it's almost unfair to him. But at the same time, like you said, players are getting opportunities and you've got to take advantage. But they're in a really tough spot, because they need those younger players to be impactful and play outside their boots a little bit.
Switching gears a little bit, Mike, one of the games tonight always jumps out to me anytime you got the Pens and the Caps. Crosby versus Ovechkin, 63rd time. I always watch it. I always love it. 2005 was a long time ago. These two guys are still getting it done. Sid, you played with Sid. I've almost come to start just collecting Sid stories, because I find him fascinating. We only see the guy on the ice who puts up points and then, gives kind of, let's be honest, cliche answers in interviews. But
yeah.
I love hearing behind the scenes, whether it's his superstitions or just things he's done as a captain. You alluded to it earlier when he fought, the room went nuts. Give us a Sid story maybe that we haven't heard from behind the scenes that would just kind of, let us know what kind of guy Sid is that we don't get to see when the mic's on.
Well, I think what we do see, a lot of it is real with him, but then I agree with you. The answers are going to be, what the
pucks in deep, give 110%, good bunch of guys in the room. Yeah. We know he's going to say that, but we know that's not Sid in the dressing room, right?
No, he's not. He's, I guess the biggest thing that I would say with Sid is he's a big kid. He is, we used to play, it wasn't Call of Duty. It was SOCOM was kind of the game back that we play on our PS Vitas or PSPs, whatever they were at the time. We'd always play like video games. Sid is very into military movies, documentaries. He's into all that stuff. He loves it. So I'll give you a couple of Sid. So the one time, we would play, I think on HBO, the 24/7 for the Winter Classic showed us playing that, and we would play. And it was just funny because when I got there, they're like, "Hey, do you have a PSP, a PlayStation Portable or whatever?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got one." And they're like, "Hey, get SOCOM. We got this game we got going." So I remember at the time it was Flower, Max Talbot, Ruslan Fedotenko, Sid, myself, Jay McKee. I'm missing some. We had about 8 or 9 guys that all had these games, and we go on the plane, and you could play like a local match, right? And we'd be playing. We talked so much shit. It was so much fun on those planes, and just going and whatever. And then we'd have like weekly rankings we would put out. And guys would get so angry because we'd have like a guy, someone put out the weekly rankings and just to prod people. But anyways, I remember one time we were like, we got to whatever city, short flight, and it was like, "Hey, let's play some more." Like we were into it. Like let's go online and play. We can create our own clan and we can play online against someone. I'm like, all right, cool. We're like grown men. We all go to one hotel room and we're sitting on the floor. There's like guys like sitting in the bed. Like we all have our little things on. We hook to the Wi-Fi at the hotel, and we start our own clan. And we called it I think it was just Pit or something like that. So we're online playing, and there's this. You can hear the voices, and they're like kids, and it makes us feel so stupid. There's kids that are dominating us playing this game, and I'm sitting there. I'm like starting to look at him. Like, can you imagine if like a fan or somebody would like realize who they're playing? And then I started looking at all of our tags, our gamer tags. I was Rupper 17. It was Tanger 58. It was Flower. I'm like, good Lord, like we couldn't hide this at all. Sid was Saving Private Ryan 87. So like there's all these different things. And I just remember like these kids just dominating us. But like that's the stuff. Sid would sit there, like he was just a big kid away from the rink. You want to get out on the road, he'd go and get a real competitive game of mini golf somewhere, get guys together before dinner and go do that. The one thing I will say with Sid that's incredible, and this is just how he works at everything. He wants to be the best at everything. Sean Casey, former the mayor, former MLB player, was setting up batting practice for us with the Pirates, and we wanted to do something on the side. We didn't really want like media or any cameras there. We just wanted to kind of go and do BP. So we were setting up BP, and we had like 7 or 8 guys that were going to go do it. And so Sid calls, and Sid knows from talking, like I played competitive basketball and baseball growing up, and Sid played competitive baseball as well. And Sid was like, he calls me up the day before, and he goes, "Hey, when was the last time you swung a bat?" And this is, I'm just probably 29 years old at the time. I'm like, actually swung a bat. I probably haven't swung a bat in 12 years, And he's like, "Let's go to the batting cage. Let's go to the batting cage and like hit a few before tomorrow. Like, we might not ever do BP again. Let's get in a few licks." I'm like, all right. So we just go to like this north of the city. We go to this mom and pop place, and we come walking in. And certainly I could go into a place like that. And Pittsburgh's pretty good with recognizing players, but like no one's going to really bother me. "Hey, good game last night," whatever. Sidney Crosby literally can't go anywhere. Like, he can't. He does his Christmas shopping on the road in Arizona because he can go to a mall there. Maybe people won't notice him, but you know what I'm saying? So we go to this place and we got like 2 rounds of quarters before everyone's texting and calling, and then people just come and they're watching. So we got in some hits. We went the next day for BP, and it was like Sid's in there and smooth left-hand swing. Honestly, a lot like little Ken Griffey, like the real smooth left-hand swing. He hits one literally out of the stadium. One hops it out of the stadium into the river. Like, it hits the very top, down right. So PNC Park right field is pretty short. Hit the top, one of the top steps, and bounced out of the stadium. And just, I'm good, you know. And it's just the guy is awesome at everything, and he wants to be the best at everything. He doesn't even want to be mediocre because he hasn't swung a bat in 10 years. He's going to make sure he's on point. He was the best hitter that day.
Absolutely fantastic stories. This stuff reminds me. So, like, I've been talking to a lot of the Golden Knights players this year, and they're mentioning how much better the vibes are off the ice, and just these stories you're telling me, like, how much of that impacts on the ice stuff. Like, I heard stories last year, the Golden Knights were going through injuries. They just felt like the vibes weren't great off the ice. They were missing some guys, and I feel like they kind of attributed that to the struggles. Obviously, you're missing big guys. That was a big part of it, but you've been on so many teams. I guess, do the vibes off the ice impact on the ice, and how do you think that works?
Yeah, I think it does. I actually think that's a big reason why the Calgary Flames haven't been able to find their game that much this year, because they had to play so many home games to start, and they had a lot of big important pieces that has changed on that team. I think it's important to get on the road, have some fun. You know, you find your groove and your guys you hang out with, and just kind of create all that stuff. But it's important to have fun and to have. We play a game for a living, and it's a game that we dreamt of playing when we were kids. You can't lose sight of that. If you're losing sight of that, you're not performing at your best. And I remember just when I went to Pittsburgh, it was actually a good example for me that we certainly won in New Jersey on a regular basis as far as just consistently we're a pretty good team and making the playoffs. It wasn't fun all the time, like it was. It was very strict. And I think that helped us. When I went to Pittsburgh, I'm like, oh, this is what it's like to play in the NHL. This is what it's like to live your dream. Like, we had fun, and I think that's really important to have those good vibes, like you mentioned. You got to get away from the game, but you got to have fun with the boys. You got to have some laughs. I mean, and then that translates, because when you're going through some tough stretches, I think it's really important to have the right guys in the room that say the right things. Like, we'll be. There's times in my career where it's like you'll lose 5 in a row. You feel like, oh my gosh, if we don't win this game, everyone's getting traded. Like, the coaches mean mugging us, the GMs mean mugging us, getting on the plane, off the plane, on the bus, off the bus. And it's like, you just get this eerie quietness before the game, which isn't really a good feeling either. And then you'll just have a guy chime in, we'll be in Vancouver, and it'll be like, well, boys, I mean, we traveled all the way out here. We should probably, put forth some effort here, just to kind of break the ice. Guys like, maybe we should, let's try to, tie our skates up a little tighter tonight. Let's get going. Just break the ice, like keep it, you laugh about it, you have fun with it. You can't take it too seriously. And I think that gets the best results.
It certainly has in Vegas and a couple other teams as well. And it was a great result for us having you on the show, Mike. I look forward to the video of you breaking down this interview and going back and forth on Russo, going, you see, Russo's not engaged here. Yeah. And then Jesse did this and Rob did. We very much look forward to it. I don't know if it'll get 1.2 million views, but it should be fun. Thanks for doing this, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Awesome, guys. Anytime.
Mike Rupp, analyst on the NHL Network and Twitter superstar.